called There Is a God. It's a very clever title or a very clever cover when you look at it, because the cover actually says there is no God, and then he slashed across the no and he wrote a. It's not, instead of there is no God, he wrote there is a God. Why? Who is Antony Flew? Antony Flew was born in 1923. And for his whole life, he was a philosopher, a high caliber philosopher, very well known in the world in the sphere of his activity. Philosophy with a specialization in the philosophy of religion. In that world, he was famous for one thing. Even though he spoke about other things, he wrote about other things, he was really known for one thing. And that's what the cover of his book actually says. He was known to be, if not the staunchest atheist in the philosophical world, at least one of the staunchest philosophers. The most stubborn, the most direct and clear and against the idea of theism, of believing in God. And that's why the title of his book, I will now read the full title of his book, There Is a God, How the World's Most Notorious Atheist Changed His Mind. That's the title of his work. When did he publish that work? He published it as soon as he changed his mind. What year? 2004. He was 81 years old. He goes through passages. I don't have time to read the quotes. I'm going to leave you the pleasure of going through the book and seeing what you conclude from it. See his own journey. When he was questioned about it later, how come you changed his mind? He said, I never changed my mind. I'm someone that I believe always followed the evidence. To him, the click happened when work on genetics began. You remember in year 2000, the United States officially launched the Human Genome Project. He released his book in 2004, and he talks about this. He says it's impossible. When we look at the amount of information contained in genes, when we look at the manner in which this physical substance has to encrypt the information and then decrypt it in order to be able to use it, at that level of complexity, it's impossible to conclude that there is no intelligence behind this. This was the key. He talks about other things, but that was the key. That was the transition point. He says, I always followed the evidence. To him, that was the evidence. Can someone claim that this is someone who doesn't know what he's talking about? Or that he doesn't have the reason and scientific understanding required to understand how modernity works, and therefore there should be no God, that this is not enough evidence? This man spent 81 years of his life publishing a whole host of books and articles and chapters and conferences. This was his work, his life's work. And it takes courage. At that age, I don't think anyone was expecting an 80-year-old man who is done with his long, very well-recognized career. He doesn't need to come out of retirement and tell the world, I've changed my mind. In fact, that could be embarrassing. It's very inspiring. It takes courage to do this. It puts you in a very vulnerable position. He still went ahead and did it. That's the first book that I thought I would share with you. The second book. The second book is from Francis Collins. So who's Francis Collins? This book was released in 2006, and the name of the book is The Language of God. Slightly different journey. This is a man who says, I grew up in a household where my parents identified as being Christians, but there was no trace of religion in my life, in our lives. Absolutely none. And then by the time he enters school and then university, he says, I was a full-fledged atheist. If anyone would ask me, I would say I'm an atheist. I do not believe in God. And he went into university. He's considered someone extremely smart. He went into quantum physics. And he says that later, when he looks at his life, I thought this point is extremely interesting, very much worth studying. He says, why was I really an atheist in university. It's like today I can tell you why. The reason is not because I had studied the proofs and the arguments and I had taken a position. He said, I wanted to enjoy life. And I felt like my full student experience in university could not really be enjoyed if I knew there's this thing called God behind me all the time. Meaning that everything I want to do, I have to think about, but what does God want me to do here? That puts restrictions, it handcuffs me. I did not want to deal with that or even think about it in university, so I took a position from the beginning and I said, I'm an atheist. Close the door to that thinking, to that discussion. He says then later, the genetic work began, and I got a lot more interested in that. So what did he do? He switched fields to biology, and then eventually studied medicine, and he became a physician. So that kind of gives you his background and his intellectual capacity. He did not only just become a geneticist, he became one of the world-leading geneticists. In fact, he became the director of the Human Genome Project. When Bill Clinton presented this project, he had him beside him, and he gave him the stage. And he spoke, and he led this project for 13 years. He is considered to be one of the top scientists in the world, bar none. He was leading a team of thousands of scientists across 6 countries to decode the human genome. This is the background of this man. He says, one day, I was dealing with this patient, she was sick, and we were not really doing a good job at managing her pain. And I would go and see her, and I didn't feel like it because she's constantly in pain, and we don't know what to do to alleviate that pain for her. So he says, I asked her, how come you seem to be positive, and you're enduring all of this, and life goes on? And she told him, it's because of what I believe. I believe in God. He gives me power to deal with all of this. And then the moment that changed his life. He says, and then she asked me, what do you believe in? And he said, I could not answer that question. I told her nothing, and I left. It's like, but that answer fell on me, shattered me, broke me. I could not think anymore. And the reason might be different. For me and you, we may think differently. For him, he considered himself to be a true scientist. And he says, for the first time in my life, I was not a scientist at all. I had failed as a scientist. I could not say what type of evidence I relied on to answer the most important and the most fundamental question in life. What else matters if I can't answer this question? So he goes on a journey. What's his journey? His journey is that he wants to establish his atheism on a rational foundation. He wants to find the best arguments to say, I am an atheist, with conviction, with confidence. The conclusion, he became one of the best known theists and believers in God in the world, and he wrote that book. And the main purpose of that book is to say that it is possible. In that book, he's not saying, come believe in God like me. His point in the book is different. He's saying, look, I am a serious scientist. This is the kind of accomplishments I have done. By the way, he went on to even greater accomplishments after the Human Genome Project. And I'm not going to talk about the genetics and all of that. I leave that to you guys. Basically, he is saying, I'm a serious scientist. I'm at the height of this academic complex discipline. No one can claim that I don't have a scientific mind, that I don't understand what to do with evidence, how to calculate and estimate and assess and evaluate evidence. And I am telling you, I am also a serious believer. In fact, he goes further in the book. He says, not only am I a believer in a God, because a lot of scientists stop there. I believe in something. No, he says, I believe in a transcendental God, meaning a God that is outside of our world. Because some people say the world itself is God, we are part of it, and he's part of us. No, God created the world. He's not part of the world. He believes in a transcendental God who cares about every individual. And he talks about it, and he says, if you were to ask someone, that's the sign. Let's not waste time talking semantics and philosophy. When you ask someone, and that's a question that they use in the scientific academy and elsewhere, to assess whether someone believes in God, what do they ask them? Do you believe in the existence of an entity to which you can pray and which can answer your prayers? That's a question. You don't need to get into the philosophy of it and all the different permutations of God. And this is the type of God that he believes in. He's not a deist, he's a theist. He believes in a personal God, not the God of some philosophers, right? He doesn't know you exist, he doesn't care about you, he cares about, a system that emanates from him willfully or not. That's deism, that's not theism. Okay? So all of this to say, inshallah, with these 2 books in mind, you are well equipped to enter into this arena, to tackle this first question that we wanted to tackle, which brings us to this battlefield, this ideological battlefield that we have talked about. There's other things that are mentioned that we're going to skip over. I want to skip directly to Karbala. One of the biggest issues that people struggle with when it comes to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that they misunderstand God. They have a misconception about God. The God that they worship is not the God of Ahl al-Bayt, is not the God of the Quran. And that's oftentimes one of the reasons why people leave religion altogether. If your God is an old man with a big beard sitting in the clouds, that probably is going to be a God that will lead you out of religion eventually. This is not the God that we worship. This is not our understanding of God. One of the best ways to understand who God is, to understand the qualities, the traits of this God, the relationship we're supposed to have with this God, go back to the ad'iyah of Ahl al-Bayt. See what type of God do they talk about? What type of God do they have a relationship with? This is our chance. We're in Muharram. If you want to do some homework by yourself, one area I would tell you to definitely go into, take a little bit of time and read the dua of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam on the day of Arafah. With that focus, from that lens, what type of God does Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam worships? What does he worship? Who does he worship? What kind of relationship and connection does Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam have with that God? See how he talks to that God. He says at some point, "O Allah, it is you that I desire. You begun bestowing your blessings on me before I was even something that could be named. Then you made me inhabit the loins, safe from the dangers of time, through the ages and the years, moving from loin to womb, throughout the passage of days and centuries. You did not take me out of compassion for me." He's telling Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you only took me out at the right time I was supposed to come out into this world. And out of kindness towards me, out of goodness to me. And then he says, you made me inhabit 3 darknesses, between the flesh and the blood and the skin. You did not make me witness my own creation. You did not leave any part of my affairs to me. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking care of us during this whole time. We don't exist. We're a fetus. Right? That's what Imam Al-Hussein is talking about. Then you took me out to a guidance that you had already spread to the world as a perfect and sound creature. And you safeguarded me in the cradle as a small child. And you sustained with provision through filling milk. And you made the hearts of those who take care of me tender towards me. And you put me in charge of merciful mothers. In the charge of merciful mothers. Right? And then he continues much later, and this to me is a heart-wrenching part of the dua. The Imam says, because the Imam is reciting this during the pilgrimage. And he would recite this every year, and people would know. I don't have time to go through the description of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam when he would recite dua Arafah. At some point he says, O Lord, Lord of the sacred city and the holy monument, is talking about the Kaaba and everything around it, and the ancient house which you have surrounded with blessing and made a security to the people. Well, Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam, in that last year, he actually went to Mecca. He went to perform the pilgrimage, but he left. He left just a few days before being able to perform the pilgrimage. He sent two big messages by doing that. The reasons is that first, this is someone of the stature, the position, the rank of Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam. When he leaves in the middle of the season of pilgrimage, people will take notice. They should wonder, how can Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam leave in the middle of the pilgrimage and not finish? And the second reason is that the Imam is sending a signal, a message to the people, that there is something even more important than this ritual, this amazing act of worship in our religion, to perform the Hajj. As important as the Hajj is, there is something even more important. The Imam is going to leave. More important than performing your Hajj is to support your Imam, is to protect your Imam. He comes before the Hajj. No different than in Siffin when they raised the Qur'an and the people said the Qur'an is raised, we can't fight anymore. And Imam Ali alayhi salam told them, I am the Qur'an. You listen to me and I'm telling you this is a trick. They did not believe him and they stopped. And the battle was done when it could have been won. The Imam here is saying there is a superficial understanding of religion. As important as Hajj is, this is not the spirit of the religion. There is something deeper. And in this case, it was the Imam himself. This is the manner in which Imam Al-Hussein alayhi salam left Mecca a few days before performing his pilgrimage. Why? Because Yazid had sent his orders that even if you are to find Imam Al-Hussein holding on to the drapes of the Kaaba, the sanctuary that pre-Islamic Arabia honored as a peaceful sanctuary, he said, if you find him hanging on to the drapes of the Kaaba, you kill him. And so the Imam did not want blood being spilled in the Kaaba to dishonor this holy sanctuary, this peaceful sanctuary. And as we said, he sent a clear message. He left no excuse. When he leaves Mecca, when he leaves the Kaaba in this manner on his way to Iraq, there is no more excuse for anyone. Anyone, even if someone would have been neglectful, even if someone would not have followed the details, now you would have taken notice. The Imam did not leave any excuse to anyone. People should have asked, why did the Imam leave? Where is he going? What made him leave? Does he not need our help? If he's leaving because he's about to be killed in the Kaaba, should we not support him? Should we not protect him? And this is how the Imam alayhi salam did not leave an excuse for anyone. I will stop here. It's almost prayer time. Inshallah, we'll continue next night. Assalamu ala al-Hussein, wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein, wa ala awlad al-Hussein, wa ala ashab al-Hussein, wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin.
صلوا على محمد وآل محمد صلي على محمد وآل محمد. Thank you, Sayyidina. You left us on a cliffhanger there. We're going to be waiting eagerly for tomorrow. So just before we get ready for prayer, remember 150,000 liters of blood. Who is Hussein? We have who is Hussein. We have all that blood that needs to be donated. Get your arms ready, whether you like it or not. Come to me to collect names. We'll have the booth tomorrow right here at the entrance. We'll help you set up the app. Take it point. August 27th, the date. It's a Saturday. Give your blood. All right, so without further ado, let's get ready for prayer. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Brothers and sisters, please, if you open a bottle of water.
الشوق تسري في شراييني حسين يا احمرار الدمع في الأشفار والعين ويا جمر اللظى المسجور في الأعماق يكويني حسين جرحي المفتوح يجري في الثرى نهرا فأغرف منه محبرتي وأكتب بالدم الشعر، وتروي أحرف الكلمات قصة غربة المرة. أرى عمري غدا طيفا يمر بخاطري ذكرى، فأرجوه بأن يبقى يجيب بلوعة عذرا. قضى ربي بأن أمضي فصبرا زينبا صبرا، فكيف الصبر والنيران من حولي.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن عليًا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليًا أمير المؤمنين ولي الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. حي على خير العمل. حي على أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين.
حسين يا دماء الشوق تسري في شراييني، حسين يا احمرار الدمع في الأشفار والعين، ويا جمر اللظى المسجور في الأعماق يكويني، حسين جرحي المفتوح يجري في الثرى نهرا، فأغرف منه محبرتي وأكتب بالدم الشعرا، وتروي أحرف الكلمات قصة غربة المرة. أرى عمري غدا طيفا يمر بخاطري ذكرى، فأرجوه بأن يبقى يجيب بلوعة عذرا.